Because in entrepreneurship, you can't just go into it solely looking at just the dollars and cents. Well, that's my point of view.
Success means, okay, I made this amount, so hence, but actually there's so many other things of growth as an individual. Hi, my name's Yudishtra, and this is my wife, Piya. We're a husband and wife podcast.
Every marriage has its stories, but not every couple decides to place a mic in front of them and share it with the world. This podcast has got to be our riskiest project yet. But what's more real than marriage, family, and business?
Wow, Piya. So we have actually finally done it. Finally getting here, and
It's been a bit of a journey.
it's definitely been a journey, starting our podcast on our first episode. How did we get here?
To be honest, I think while we were dating, I think in the beginning stages of us dating, I remember telling you that, hey, I'm like working on this project. Like I wanted to start up a podcast. And I went so far as even like meeting with like someone to assist me with like, the branding side of things.
Yes.
I even had a name for it. And I even thought of a couple of guests who I wanted to, to get on the podcast. And it was a solo thing that I wanted to do on my own. But, it just wasn't the right time. So then I realized like it just never materialized. And then we got together and then I realized like, hey, this could be potentially an interesting project to do together. And then I remembered sharing it with you and you were like up for it. Yeah. And then we had it like on our goals. Like, we do this thing where, we like to have like a 5-year goal, 3-year goal, 1-year goal. So I remember it was always in that list of goals that we wanted to do, like start up a podcast together, but we were just waiting for the right time. I'm guessing 2025 is the year.
You remember in our office, we actually renovated the place, or you actually got the place done with a whole setup of a space where we thought, will be the spot that you would like to shoot your podcast.
Yeah, the neon lights.
The neon lights and what was the quote on the neon lights? Do you remember
with
what it was?
vulnerability comes strength.
Right. But I think what makes this amazing is that I guess, sometimes the time of when it should happen, it's all decided in some way or other. And I think it's really, really nice, that we've finally been able to do this. And what makes this even better is that we're actually doing it together.
Yeah, that's true. And like I think like I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I think there's also elements like, it's been 2 years now that we're married and like we wanted to do the podcast in conjunction with our 2 years anniversary. I personally think that if we were to start the podcast 2 years before, like when we just got married, I don't think that we would be in the right mental space, emotional space to do it versus how we feel today.
Absolutely.
Right, in our marriage, in our own personal growth. So like, just echoing back to what you mentioned earlier about timing. All in good timing.
I think what is really nice, when we have like a podcast like this, it's a great place for us to share our stories. Do you remember, our trip in Bali?
Yeah. Yes.
I think you want to talk a little bit about our trip in Bali and how Bali has become the place that it looks like you go there multiple times a year.
Yeah, I know. Bali has become like my favorite. I think it's a very healing space for me. And I went the first time this year in May. At that time, you went to Australia to visit family and attend your friend's wedding. And I went to Bali instead on a solo retreat.
Yes.
And it was very healing for me. And I felt that, oh, hey, wait a minute, like this is something that I wanted to experience with you. And then I remembered telling you about it when I got back from the trip. And we were like, okay, why do we have to wait till next year? Let's just go again. And then we booked that flight. When did we go? Was it August?
August, I
late
think
July,
it was. Yes,
beginning of August. Yeah, and that was where we actually wanted to do like our review, like our year-end review for the next couple of months till the end of the year. And I remember telling you like, hey, okay, I found this cafe. Let's walk to that cafe. It's called Fold. That green and white cafe in Canggu, right? And the walk to that cafe was very interesting. You were not a fan of the walk. But anyways, when we sat there, we were quite intentional that we wanted to plan, like, okay, what's new for us? Like, let's get out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I remember the first thing you said was that I think it's time, let's do the podcast. And that was where we sat down. We actually even came up with the name turning points there.
Correct.
The theme, like what we wanted to talk about, and how we, even the action plan for it. Yeah. So how did it feel for you? Like, how do you know that you were actually ready to do the podcast then?
Wow, actually, that's a really, really good question. To be honest, right, doing a podcast has been on my mind for a long time. So I remember even when you wanted to do it, and I really had my foot off thinking I wanted to do something, but I just didn't know when and how. And I think when we went to Bali, and this specific cafe, I definitely want to go back there again.
Yeah.
I remember that walk to that cafe. Was definitely a very interesting walk.
Yeah.
Because walking there and going to this cafe.
Yeah, the road was
road was definitely a very interesting journey, and that interesting journey is what led us to our podcast.
It was
today.
like how we felt getting here, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it was really nice that we were able to sit at this cafe and actually immerse ourselves and say, hey, this could be something really cool. Something that we can actually, share our stories as husband and wife.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to that point that, we were talking about, which is that both of us enjoy talking.
Yeah.
I think everybody would agree. I think
definitely we love it.
Yeah. I think your parents and my parents always say that, like, you guys are, you just love to talk.
Yeah.
That's the truth. And I think the truth of it is also, like, whenever you go out for, like, an example, like a networking event or, meet new people, and same goes to me. I always get so excited when we come home and we have our ritual where we're on our sofa.
Yes.
And then we're like, okay, who wants to go first? And usually, like, we are kind of like fighting with each other. Like, okay, I want to say first, I want to say first. And then, like, oftentimes I always go first.
Yeah.
But then, so essentially in that conversation, I always feel so excited sharing with you. And because I think whenever I tell you, like, hey, I met this person, it's always also about what I learned from them.
Yes.
What are some of the inspiring things that they've shared with me? And how, like, I'm always very excited to see how, like, sometimes their experiences, how we resonate with that experience. And you always have very interesting questions to ask, like, hey, how about, And then I realized, like, wait a minute, like, I'm benefiting so much from learning about your encounters with these people. And that's when we talked about why not start a podcast and get them, get them on our podcast, because I'm sure a lot of people can benefit from those conversations, because it's always the theme is always surrounding, like, of course, business, entrepreneurship, but there's also an element where we love asking people about their childhood, about their relationships, their marriage, their childhood, their friendships, their dynamics growing up and things like that. So I felt that, it's a nice way to kind of, we look at a person in its entirety. We have
embarked on this journey of entrepreneurship, right? I mean, just to touch on a little bit about meeting people and understanding their stories. I've always found in the journey of entrepreneurship, sometimes it can get a little bit lonely. Especially when you're starting up a business.
Oh, so true.
And you're trying to figure the blocks out, how to get things going. And in this process, when I go around and I meet people, I'm always very, very curious to hear their stories. And as what you were mentioning, how we want to understand what people, we want to understand about people from their different perspectives of their life.
Yeah.
And I find, I notice that when I'm asking them these questions, I'm always trying to see, okay, it could be even simple questions like, so tell me a little bit about your day in your life as an entrepreneur.
I noticed that's like your favorite question. You love like their day in the life. Yeah.
I love asking them. And honestly speaking, I find something very interesting when I speak to people, entrepreneurs. I'll highlight on entrepreneurs. When they tell me that they have a very, very interesting morning routine. Because that is something that I realized, over the course of conversations with different people, their morning routines are something which is really, really important.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, and it just gives me such a, just such a good insights.
Yeah, like getting to know about a person more than just the surface, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I noticed that you always, that's like your favorite question.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think sometimes I feel I should take a book and I should actually compile the number of people I've asked this question.
Yeah.
Tell me what's your day in your life? What's your morning routine?
But it's so funny how I feel like that's the question that you always ask people. Like, I don't know whether you can pick up on the question that I always ask, especially like women entrepreneurs or women like career women.
Yes.
It's always like, how do you balance both?
Exactly.
Yeah. So whenever they tell me that they've got young kids or even just kids in general, and then they are like all out like running their business or they are working a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I'm always so curious. Like even last week we just met with someone and remember I just had to ask her because she was telling me that she's doing all these things. I just had to ask her like, how do you do it all, you know? And then the truth of it is that the answer that they always tell me is that you actually can't do it all. Yeah, which is a very, it's actually really good advice because I always was the kind of person that I thought that, no, I'm going to be able to do it all. But the truth of it is that you need help.
Absolutely.
And you can do it all, but not at the same time.
Absolutely.
Basically, you gotta, there's something's gotta give at a certain phase in your life. Something will be more important. Yeah, so I think it's quite nice. Like in this podcast, I guess like we're just trying to unpack all of that, right? So like when we talk about career, then there's certain parts of our podcast that we want to talk a little bit more. The emphasis is a lot more on relationships, marriages, and there's certain phases in our marriage where more attention has to be put to it. So for example, if a couple is expecting a baby, a lot more attention goes to that, you know. So yeah, I'm like really excited to like, you know, have like, you know, fun guests on our show that can talk. But speaking of like talking to people, do you remember the flight back from Sabah?
I absolutely remember this. A fun fact to tell you, it's I think it would be about a year ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That we were in Sabah.
Oh, yeah. October.
Yeah, it was in October. And I definitely remember that trip in Sabah. The first part of it is that it was a really nice trip because it was our first year
wedding anniversary
that we went to, you know, we spent time in Sabah. The second part of it is I remember this very clearly. So this was actually on our way back from Sabah to KL. We were at the airport. We were checking in. And I remember telling you, you know, hey, do you see this guy?
Interesting looking
gentleman. He was standing and he had his glasses and his jacket and, you know, and I was like, wow, okay, who's this guy? You know, this tall guy and, you know, but he just looked interesting.
Yeah, I had the same thought.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So we left it as it is. And I mean, we were talking about it, but I guess we didn't go much
us
into
being
it.
Us, we're trying to be a bit kepo lah, trying to figure out who
he is and everything. And I like the part that after we, we checked in and all, and we boarded the flight, and we walk in.
I could see. I actually saw him.
Oh, did you?
I actually saw him while we were walking down the aisle.
Okay.
And I think we were telling like, oh my god, are we going to be sitting next to him? And that's exactly.
And it was so funny because when it was actually him by our side, I remember we sat down, and I think an interesting fact to share is that I love talking. I love meeting people. So I knew on the flight, I think he was at the corner. I was in the middle, you were at the side.
Yeah.
And I knew you were like, okay, ready to sit, buckle your seatbelt and just sleep. And I remember him just turning around and he asked us, I think he asked us a question.
Yeah.
Or it was either he asked us a question or we were talking about the plane and he says, hey, actually, you know, he enlightened us. We were asking what plane it was.
And that started the whole conversation. Yeah, it was like a mini podcast, basically, us interviewing him.
Absolutely.
I remember like you were asking him a lot of questions related to like his career. So he worked like in an airline and he was sharing about the scope of his job.
Yeah.
And how he got to where he was, I think career advice and things like that. And like myself, on the other hand, I was so curious to ask him because I think he had an interracial marriage.
Correct.
Yeah, I was so curious to ask him, like, you know, raising children, like in that kind of background, his relationship with his wife. And I asked him for like, okay, say like I think I mentioned to him like we've been married for a year now. What is like one marriage advice that you would give us and everything. Like
you asked him what one marriage advice.
Yeah.
I asked him what will be one business advice you'll give me.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. But to be honest, right, at that moment, I actually had a thought in my head, like, oh wow, like we're so passionate about the same thing, like getting to know a person, but it's so nice how we also see it in like different lenses.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like
Absolutely.
like I was so curious about like one side of it, and you were, but it was pretty nice because at the end of it, you kind of covered it all.
Correct.
We got to like really know him. At the end, I think he invited us for his daughter's wedding or something.
He
I mean,
did.
I mean, he said
did.
that he would have invited us if he had met us earlier. But yeah, I guess like that's how you build relationship, and it's so funny how like he has such a profound impact.
Absolutely. Do you know something? He's one person I definitely want him to be on our podcast.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that.
Yeah,
if we ever have a podcast, like let's get him on or something like that.
Exactly.
It was so insightful.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think those were the little things along the way that kind of led us to like where we are today, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and like speaking of like risks, like earlier I mentioned, like this podcast has got to be like our biggest like risk yet. Besides the podcast, right? Is there any other thing that you would consider to be a very risky thing that we did together?
Wow. Okay. Actually, I would say it was actually us starting a business together. Do you remember we did it before we got married?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, starting a business together before getting married.
We started a business together before we were married. And I think what was interesting in that was actually starting a business and actually not really knowing what we were doing.
Yeah.
Literally trying to figure it out, you know. But what was so nice out of this is that we actually, did it together and figured this out in more details together. Yeah. And I think along the way in our podcast, we will definitely share more stories about that.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think there were so many learning curves that we went through.
So many turning points.
Yeah, so many turning points.
Literally so many turning points. Yeah.
Exactly.
And like what you mentioned earlier though, like as a young entrepreneur, even like for myself, I always like asking people who have, done something right. Like how do you do this? Or what did you learn? Or what is like... what words of wisdom can you impart on me and things like that? And it's always really nice to hear other people's perspectives and their turning points and shifts that changed how they viewed something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I completely agree. Like coming back to the part on the project, I think definitely like running a business together before getting married is very risky.
It's definitely a very, very risky thing. And I think I just want to touch on one more thing in this part of, I don't know if in terms of risk or, I think one bit in entrepreneurship, which I think I would love to cover in this podcast along the way, is for us to actually share our journey and stories and things that we have learned along the way. We're definitely far from being perfect. There's still a lot that we're learning. But I feel that there were so many things that we picked up along the way that I wish it would have been nice if someone had actually shared that with us when we were embarking on this journey.
Yeah, that is so true because like oftentimes like we see a lot when somebody has made it.
Yeah.
But it's quite comforting like when you're on that journey to know that, hey, like what I'm feeling right now is valid and that it'll get better. So people coming out and actually talking about, the mistakes they made, the setbacks they had, even the wins that they had. And I guess like along the way in entrepreneurship, the wins change as well, right? So like in the beginning, you're focused on a lot of personal wins as well. It's not always monetary, right?
Correct.
Like for me, setting up my law firm, there was the first year of me running the firm, my focus was at the end of 1 year, I need to have had grown as an individual. So like I would usually get quite like, it was quite nerve-wracking, to like speak in front of a judge or to like go against an opponent who's way more senior than I am. But I remembered after a year, like I measured how confident I was after a year, and I realized like those are wins. It's not always monetary.
Absolutely.
There are personal development wins as well along the way. And I guess that's something that we want to talk about as well, because in entrepreneurship, you can't just go into it solely looking at just the dollars and cents. Well, that's my point of view.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it'll be also quite nice, I think for us to talk a little bit more, in one of our episodes a bit about how do we quantify or, because people quantify or they talk about in any business, it's always about a monetary standpoint.
Like success means money.
Yeah, success means, okay, I made this amount, so hence, but actually there's so many other things of growth as an individual. So like how you just touched on when you started your firm, how you measured yourself as an individual.
I think like for me, just to add on, something that I felt was risky as well.
Okay.
Was of course starting the business, not being married one, but also both of us going into entrepreneurship at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
That was
absolutely
in the beginning of marriage, especially because oftentimes like I remember telling people and they're like, oh, both of y'all are starting up your business, and they give you this look, and then you realize like, oh man, like, okay, am I supposed to be like worried or something? And then you kind of realize that it is difficult, right? Because oftentimes if there's someone who is having like a stable job, who doesn't really need to take the risks.
Correct.
It's of course, it's safer.
Absolutely.
But I guess in our case, it was an open conversation that we had before we got married that we both want to do it, and that we need each other's support, like a tremendous amount of support. Yeah.
I think on that point of it, right, you're right. From one point, it's like, both of us starting up our business at the time when we were going to get married, and then we got married. But on the contrary of it, on the other point of it, what was really nice is that it was so nice because we were on this journey together. Together, we're trying to build something. And I remember, I think in marriage, right, what makes it so nice is that, I mean, there are some days I come back from work and I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And you're always there being the person, it's okay, don't worry. Some days things happen, next it gets better. And then there's some days where you come back and you're like, my goodness,
can't do this anymore or whatever.
Exactly, I have to deal with this, And then I come in and I'll be like, it's all right.
And there's also days where we both can't do it anymore.
Like, oh my God.
And then we just go and have hot pot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So an interesting fact is that I think hot pot is our comfort food.
Yeah.
I think we seem to really like it.
But it's these little things that get you through the hard stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think even in entrepreneurship, I think I really value the support that you give me. I think it'll be incredibly difficult if I didn't have you as my biggest cheerleader. So I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. It's the same thing on my side. I think even for me as an entrepreneur, when you are, you're building things, it's always nice having a really, really supportive partner. Because that actually, I'll be honest, you win more than half the battle. Very honestly, you win more than half the battle. I think also from another part of it, I just want to touch on a little bit is that, we were talking about business, entrepreneurship and everything. It's also been really nice because I've also learned a lot from you about marriage. And I think that has been something really, really interesting. I mean,
what did you learn?
Let's accept the fact that, you are a divorce lawyer.
Yeah.
So
literally know what makes and breaks relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I honestly have learned so much. And I believe, I think we will definitely be speaking more about this.
Yeah.
We will, dive into
peel the onion.
Yeah, we'll start peeling the onions, and I'm sure a lot of you guys out there will be able to resonate with a lot of these stories. And we want to be, super vulnerable,
candid,
and,
things that we wish we heard, like when we just got married, and things like that. But coming to that point, so just a little bit of a lightning round.
Sure.
Since we're touching on things we learned in our marriage, right?
Yeah.
What would you say is the funniest mistake that you ever did in our marriage or relationship?
Wow. Okay, you guys are going to start laughing about this.
I think I know.
There was actually, I think, but this is just the highlight. We were not yet married at that time, okay? Piya actually called me when we were dating and she's like, hey, when is my birthday? I kid you not, I panicked. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I knew
your girlfriend's birthday.
But wait, I knew the month, but the date hurt. So I paid it up. I took the phone and I actually went on
through Facebook.
I went through Facebook. Yeah. And you know what's the worst part? As I was going through Facebook, my internet started giving me problems. So Piya then knew, hey.
Yeah, I knew it.
I definitely, I
so
forgot.
I told you to own up. The lawyer in me came out at that time. I can tell when someone's lying, right?
Exactly.
But, yeah.
So now I don't forget it. I know it's the 4th of January, 1994. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good one. Okay, so that's the funniest mistake. Okay.
Yes. How about you? What would be
funniest mistake
that, you know?
I mean, this is the thing that's just coming on top of my head. I just remembered this. So
sure.
I have lupus, right? Autoimmune condition.
Yes.
So I had to like diligently take my medicine.
Yeah.
And do you remember one time I lied to you that I called the doctor?
Oh my God.
Yeah. The doctor said I don't have to take the medicine because I really didn't want to take my medicine.
Yeah.
And I remember that was the first time. It was so early on in our relationship.
Yes.
I remember you were so disappointed, and then like I remember you called me and you said, called me like physically, like, okay, come here. Okay, I really don't appreciate lying. And I was like, oh my God, like, yeah, because like, you know, but it was actually quite, it's just a touch on that, right? So like, I'm not like in a relationship, I'm not used to someone telling me something nicely. So meaning that I always thought that if you made a mistake, you will either be yelled at or that there's stonewalling involved. Like, you know, they would just like go completely silent and then you're just sitting there figuring out what you did wrong. So that was actually it was actually like a breath of fresh air for me, because I remember you called me and then you mentioned that, hey, I know I really don't appreciate you lying. You know, I care about you. You should take your meds on time and things like that. And then you gave me a hug and then you went about your day. And I was so confused, like, oh my God, is this what a healthy relationship is? Yeah. Because I wasn't used to that. Yeah, so that actually was like such a huge turning point, to be honest, because I realized like, oh my goodness, like somebody can actually really care for you and tell you that they're not happy about something and still like love you, and everything goes back like normal, you know. So yeah, that was actually something. So that was it was funny. It's funny now, but not at that time lah. But I remember like now I funny because like I remember like I thought to myself, oh my God, I took it a bit too far, I should have lied. But yeah, so yeah. Another one on the lightning round. What about something that you thought was growth, but I felt it was risky, and then the other way around?
Okay, for me, I think the part of growth will be, it's a bit related to entrepreneurship, will be a bit more about taking risk. I feel that has got to be something which is, I feel it's growth on my side.
Yeah, you're more bigger on risks.
Learning to take risk. I mean, not all of it has paid off, but, you know, it's a process. Yeah. And I think the part, what was that one? What's growth and...
So, I think I'm more risk averse when it comes to like business decisions. I think I'm better now after being with you, because I'm learning to like be a bit more, okay, I got to take some risks, especially in entrepreneurship when you're running a business. The other way around. So like something that I think I look at it as growth and you are more risk. I think like if I can answer that, I think it's traveling. Sure. Yeah. So like I love traveling, and like for me, it's like it's the best way to grow as a person, as a couple, even if you travel with friends. Like honestly, it just, I personally think that it is the way to really get to know yourself and the people that you travel with, and even the place that you go to. But I think for you, like you are a bit more careful. Is that the right word?
Yeah, I think it's because I'm a little bit of a person where I like familiarity. Okay? So, for an example...
I can tell.
I mean, just for an example, the restaurants, you know. Yeah. So, just a fun fact, when we were dating...
Oh my God, we went to the same restaurant.
We used to go to the same restaurant. And my reasoning was very simple, okay? This is my defense to it, right?
Okay, fine. Let's hear it now.
We're dating. We're together. I didn't want to disappoint you. And I wanted to make sure. I didn't
know that. I thought
the food was good, you know?
Okay, fine. I thought that it was just, okay, I'm not going to, it's too much of effort to go and research or whatever. But yeah, I get your point actually, because it's the same now, like I noticed. Yeah. But then I feel like you're coming out of your comfort zone a lot.
I am slowly coming out. Yeah. So even in the example of, we talk of traveling, yes, it is something that, I didn't really fancy before this, found it a bit risky. But now I'm not gonna lie. Every time we have gone on a trip, it has been like I've learned so much.
Yeah, I
out
know.
of
Like
it.
I'm so proud of you. Like I feel like you've really like, come out of your of that safety, that safety net or whatever you call it.
Yes.
Yeah, but I guess that's what relationships are all about, right? Like bringing the best out of the person. Like you want to be with
Absolutely.
someone that you can grow. I think problem starts coming in when you're basically stagnant and,
Yeah.
and both parties are just complacent. You're not really growing, right? That's where the real trouble arises. But so we are gonna end our podcast by just very in simple terms, our turning points.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah, we've got many, but so I'll go first. So my turning point was being open to love and being vulnerable even after being hurt. I think it was that openness that led me to meeting you and also to meeting some very amazing people in my life, which I would love to have on the podcast. And essentially, here we are today, doing the podcast together,
Yeah.
sharing our stories, our turning points, hoping to inspire, hoping to help others find theirs too.
And I think my turning point has got to be being able to actually come up here and share our stories, and specifically to be able to be doing it with my beloved wife.
Here's to the turning points that shape us.